Okay, let's just hope it's not broken like other games that we know of.
right? Like which one? This game is broken.
This has become broken. It was good, but I've noticed that there are a lot of glitches in this game, and especially for the PC users.
Oh, I know. PC users are outraged.
Like, there's so many things that, hey, hi, how are you? I'm over here. Like games like, you got, like, say, God of War. Great game, but it's broken. They have a glitch in there where you're supposed to do these keystones, lore stones, really. And there's one where you just cannot get it in there, and it's been years, and they could easily have fixed it, but they have not. Just by a simple thing, you pay all this money for this, and then things get broken. Like, they had a very, very good chance to restart the game and have lots of new followers, but with that last update that they had, I think they totally botched it, to tell you the truth. So, like, you know, a simple little fix. You know, we pay all this money, you expect us to pay $80, $100, sometimes up to what was the highest one that you had said you saw? Like around 170, almost $200
Yeah, for the
for
Ultimate Edition.
for a complete game with add-ons and everything, only to have it broken? Why? A simple little program fix. Do little by little, not a whole bunch all at once. Work on it. Kind of reminds me of the time that Tommy Tallarico from, you remember Electric Playground?
Yeah.
And how he gave Triple Play 99 a 0. And, you know, I've always agreed with that because you could just tell that he was so passionate about a game. And then it would just come out that you pay all this money only for it to be broken. You know, that's a big load. You know, people pay for all this money and then get a broken game. And that's the other thing. Look at Cyberpunk. Look how much that was hyped. And then it turned out to be a complete dud. Now, I don't know if it was supposed to be like that. The hype, if it got way out of hand. And now they're doing all this fixes and stuff like that. That shouldn't have happened.
Is about digital games and versus, games back in the day, say like retro games that were made on CD and stuff, is that they're able to make these fixes. You know, if a game, I mean, a lot of the games, obviously, because they were being sold as physical copies, they had to do more to ensure that they were working before they got sold, right? But that wasn't always the case. There were a couple that did come out that were completely broken, and there was no way to fix it, right? So they have to reprint the physical copy of that game. Whereas the digital nowadays, if they do come out broken, at least they're repairable to some extent.
You see, and that's where I kind of tend to disagree, because you've had the PlayStation Play Store out for how many years now? Right? And you've had like the PlayStation 3. Some of it could have been easily done in PlayStation 2, but that was a new thing. Yes, granted, I give them that much. But, you know, you had the PC, and a lot of them are ports over sometimes that they could perfect it while they're on the PC before they port it over. Like, I understand the fact that, you know, there's some games and whatnot. That's why I kind of liked when they had the exclusives, right? And that's what they would work on for individual ones. Like you had your Xbox ones and you had your PlayStation exclusives, or even Sega Saturn, whatever, right? And nowadays it's so simple to fix it, right? And work on making that perfection. Like, I get the fact that Cyberpunk has been like 7-8 years in the making, or whatever they claim to have been. In that time, if they were not finished, like, I know they're under pressure, but they shouldn't have released it. And they shouldn't. Well, I don't know if it was a PR stunt that went wrong and backfired in their face or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and that's the big topic, you know, on the internet. Like, a lot of the developers versus the executives, right? The executives, they have like shareholders and other committee people that they have to talk to concerning, you know, the financial decisions and stuff that are made towards marketing a game. Whereas the developers, they're under the pressure to make these games and make them work, and they're given a certain amount of time to do this kind of stuff. So, I mean, it's always difficult to bring a product that's going to be successful versus, you know, what the proper decision is.
Well, you know, yeah,
marketing.
I get that, but here's the thing. We are the people that make or break if that game's going to be good or not. We can make or break it before it even comes out, because people know what they want, they know what they're expecting, right? And if you got an executive, leave the developers alone. Let them work on it and get it done, because otherwise you're going to have a hot mess like Cyberpunk. And that's part of the problem. You know, yeah, okay, I get that Cyberpunk was delayed for God knows how many times, right? And for so long. But you know what? It was broken. The developers knew it, and I'm sure they probably announced that it was, you know, told them that, well, you know, we can't really send something out broken. And this is a prime example of it. Of where things were broken before they even came out. And now look at the reputation that the company has, because they did some really good games and now they released one broken thing. It may take them time to get over it, you know, people to get over it, but in the end, like, it's broken. Like, you can't sell broken piece. Let them do their work. Let them get the job done. Don't be pushing. I would rather have them make that announcement that they're coming out with it, and it's going to take a couple years because they still need to fix this or fix that on it. I would rather have something complete rather than something that's not complete and then have like a crap game that I paid $100 for that's pretty much a coaster. Which also brings to my next thing. about all these extra add-ons. I would rather pay the extra, say, if I'm paying 80 to 90 bucks to actually have the add-ons included like they used to back then, like back in the day, where you had to unlock and work for it. So instead of this crap where they're costing you more money that they could easily put in here. Like, give us a reward for waiting 2 or 3 years down the road for a game that was delayed because they're having issues.
I think part of the problem with the gaming industry, I mean, I don't know, like, it's a multi-billion-dollar industry now, it's ridiculous. But I think part of the problem is the hype. You know, like, I remember, do you remember the PlayStation magazines back in the day before a game came out? They would send like a demo disc with it.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
Right? And that's what got us hyped. Or the magazine itself would talk about, you know, not so much the development of the game, but more of like when a game was about to be released. You know, but until then, we never heard anything about that game. We didn't even know the game was going to come out. We didn't know anything. You know, very seldom.
You want to come back here? I found a door. Sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, before, like, okay, like a good example is like, Final Fantasy VII to Final Fantasy VIII, right? So I know this is like, okay, not everybody's into Final Fantasy, maybe some people are, but the thing was, is we didn't know anything about Final Fantasy VIII as much. I mean, there were some things about it, there were rumors, but not like it is today, and that's part of the problem, is the internet has, you know, instant access to everything, you know, and so nothing is a secret anymore, you know, nothing is, you know, a surprise, right? So, and I remember, like, okay, I remember specifically, like, when Tomb Raider 2 came out, I didn't know anything about the development of Tomb Raider 3. I didn't even know if there was going to be a Tomb Raider 3, you know, very seldom. And then they brought out this demo disc, and I remember it, I don't exactly remember what demos it came with it. I think Gaiden was one of them, or Gaiden, or was it Tenchu? I can't remember.
Yeah, I remember Tenchu, yeah.
Yeah, and it had Enter the Gex or something. Maybe I'm mixing these up, but
Enter
I remember
the
that. Yeah, right. But I remember it had, like, you know, 3 or 4 demos of it, and one of the things it had was like, you know, some talks about Tomb Raider 3 and stuff like that. But that was the most we ever got, if you know what I mean, right? Like, everything wasn't hype like it is today, and everything is so instant. Nothing is a surprise anymore, you know?
No, that's true, and that's where they need to really start working on that.
You will suffer.
Where they need to keep things a lot more hush-hush. Like, I get they need to do, like, their little demos for E3 and stuff like that. But when you get to that point, okay, you do your demo, okay, keep it hush-hush from that point on. So then that way, you know, people aren't expecting it to be pushed out so quickly. Because, you know, that's where people feel the pressure that they have to get the job out and get the whatever out. I would rather be pushed back into a hush-hush, and then when it's ready to come out, then push it with all your might that you can. Test it. Make sure things are done and tested properly.
Well, You know, it's always a challenge, I think, between game developers and executives, and you know what the proper amount of exposure is versus, you know, the proper amount of leaked rumors seems to be the thing now. But you know what I mean? And it's always a difficult balance. Like on one hand, you do want people to get hyped about a particular game. I know if I was making a game, I'd want people to know that this game was being made. You know, but how much of them, like how much I'd want them to know, obviously, is something else I would try to minimize, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like, I
Control
would, okay,
damage.
so, yeah, oh, well, PR, but yeah,
Yeah, that,
okay, so like in E3, right? They announce a game, but then you don't hear anything about it, or they just give you little tidbits for the next 5 years. Now, to me, that's too far in advance. You know what I mean? Like, hype me up within like the year, maybe a year and a half. You know,
yeah,
don't
like they
hype me up
used to
five
do
years
for
ahead.
movies. Like they make the announcement that they're going to make the movie, right? So you're aware that it's going to be made, and then within what 6 months of release, that's when they start hyping up these big ass movies.
Right? Or they end the trailer, like they have the, like, Marvel is famous for this, but they have the end scene, right? And
Right.
then like if there's going to be a continuation, that they end it like that.
Yeah, it's a challenge,
Well,
but you know, it's developers are a lot like people in the factory, right? They're the type of people that are depended on to get the job done. Okay, and yes, they do have a deadline, but you know what? You can't rush a product, especially when it's in a prototype type stage, and not expect, you know, things to go wrong. And I think that's part of the problem. They're given amount of time, okay, and sometimes they just can't reach that deadline because certain things come up, right? But that's where the executives got to understand that, you know, it's not always going to be able to make that deadline. And if they want to make the best kind of money that you can off of that project, well, then you're going to have to give the developers that time to work out the kinks. And if they can't, you just find somebody to replace them. It's that simple.
I think the other problem too is technology, right? My question was always, why is there a deadline? Like that was my number one question with, like, why did it? Okay, so let's take Cyberpunk, obviously, why it came out broken the way that it did, and the question is why was there a deadline? And I think technology is the answer. As things progress and things get more advanced, say in graphic and realism and the things that you can do in video games and all kinds of stuff, I think there's always that push to get the product out before they jump on a new engine, or before the graphics get outdated. Now, I have seen where games have come out behind the technology, like it was in production and they did take their time, but then when they came out, they released in a time when you know, the graphics were outdated or it was an older engine. And now that doesn't mean that the game was bad in any way or anything like that, but that was obviously the complaint. It became outdated and then people weren't as inclined to play it because the latest and greatest was out. And I think that's also our problem. We have this perpetual need to always want to have the latest and greatest, right?
Yeah.
We want the next big thing.